Alright, so we're going to do a couple of mods inside the tank. So right down on the bottom of the tank here, we obviously need the fuel to be able to drain from this end all the way down to the pickup, which is down basically by that bung there. So I'll show you in the bottom of the tank here. So we've cleaned the tank out, it's all pretty clean. The steel's all in good nick, we're really happy with all of that. So this is ready to blast now. But we're going to do a couple of modifications. So we've got, you can sort of see these little, it's basically like a little bulkhead. It's kind of, I suppose it acts like a bit like a baffle. But right down at the bottom corner here, there's a tiny hole. It's probably maybe, I don't know, 10 mil, half-inch hole, something like that. They've 45'd it off when they built the boat and just welded it down to about there, and then sort of welded it from there up, and there's a tiny gap. It blocks up really easily, so we're going to get the plasma and cut a nice big sort of radius in here somewhere, all the way through. I'd love to have holes that size, but you know, we can't. But yeah, so we're going to cut basically a hole in every single one of these beams. You can see there's a few of them, what, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them in each tank, and then down the back here. And then also this big pipe that you can see here goes all the way up to the deck. That's the filler pipe, and normally they have them going right the way down to the bottom of the tank like this to stop the fuel from foaming up when you pour heaps in at high speed. And then it's got this plate here so that the fuel hits that and then sort of disperses out rather than go straight down and ruffles up all of the junk that sort of sits at the bottom of the tank that you accumulate over the time. None of this is going to work for us, so I can't clean out underneath that well enough on a regular basis, and I also can't sandblast under there and paint under there easily, so we're going to grind that out on both sides. There's one in each tank, we're going to cut that out. And then also this pipe here is mild steel, so I can sandblast and paint the outside, but I can't deal with anything on the inside, so we're actually going to chop that out altogether up high. And then we're in two minds. We're either going to weld in a stainless pipe all the way down, basically to duplicate it, come all the way back down to the bottom here again, and then have this plate as a piece of stainless, and I'll leave maybe a 1-inch lip there and a 1-inch lip here, and put a piece of stainless over top and just bolt it, so I can always take it out later and clean it if need be. However, because it's veggie oil, stainless still oxidizes the fuel, so any steel or any metals contacting the oil oxidizes it. They just have different rates of oxidization, mild steel being the worst, aluminium being the best. Stainless is still not great, but it's better than some of the other steels. So, and then over the back here you can see we've got two pickups, one stainless and the one on the left is mild steel. We're going to leave the one that's stainless, and we're going to cut the one that's mild steel out, and I'm going to put a stainless one in. So there's quite a bit of welding and engineering and stuff to do in each of these tanks. So this is the, what is this, port left-hand side, port hand side of the boat. So I'll show you the starboard side because we've got a wee bit of modifications over there that's a bit different to do. So this is the starboard tank. You can sort of see the same sort of setup. It's got the big long filler pipe. It's got the two pickups, one stainless, one mild. It has the same sort of setup with these basically little baffles with no drainage down the bottom. But this tank here has this pipe that goes through all of these holes, which the previous tank doesn't. Now, what that pipe does, so up there where it goes through the wall, I don't know if I can show you, but where it goes through the wall just there, that's the crash bulkhead, so that's the bottom end of the crash bulkhead. So if we hit something really hard, what this pipe gives us is the ability, so down at this end of the pipe, where it goes through the wall there, I'll show you the other end of it. So if you come out of the tank and go up into the cofferdam, that is the other end of the pipe. So it's, oh, bloody hell. So it's basically a bolt-on flange there, and they had a ball valve on the end of that flange. So if, for example, we go and hit something really hard, and we don't know if we've ruptured the boat, we come down into the cofferdam here, open the ball valve, and if water comes out, we've ruptured it. If water doesn't come out, we haven't ruptured it. So it's a real simple system of telling if the boat's still watertight, because you cannot climb into the crash bulkhead, but you can get into the cofferdam. So I need to have this pipe. Now the downside is that bloody pipe is dead. It's rusted out, it's blocked, something's going on, I don't know. And either way, because it's mild steel, again, it has to be blasted and painted and all that sort of jazz. So because we don't know where the fault in the pipe is, we're actually just going to cut it out altogether, and we're going to put a piece of stainless in. That will be blasted and painted so it doesn't touch the fuel. Because yeah, the fuel doesn't go inside that obviously, so there's no reason why we shouldn't just blast and paint it. So that's another thing that we've got to do on this tank, is chop that out and replace it. So one of the reasons why I wanted to replace this pipe that runs through from the crash bulkhead through into the cofferdam is I suspected it was garbage in the inside, and lo and behold, it's garbage on the inside. That's kind of why it keeps catching on fire, is there's just so much crap on the inside of it. I melted the trigger on my handle, was held on by hose, what do you call it, zip ties, and I got a little bit close to the flame and I melted them off. I have a two-handed plasma. So what we've got, we used to have a pipe going through the centre of all these holes. You can kind of see the remnants of it there. And that goes through the bulkhead there into the cofferdam. And that's our system that tells us if we've got a hull breach when we ram something really hard at the front. I don't know if you can see it, but I've basically cut it off at the wall. I'm going to be welding that completely shut. And same deal at this end, welding that one completely shut. The reason being is it's next to impossible for me to get a full length of pipe in here and actually get a good seal on those welds all the way around. So we have a better plan. We're going to lift it up. And the reason we can do this is if we come back here, if you have a look at the boat, the bow is sort of higher than the cofferdam. So you've got your cofferdam just there behind the ladder, and then you've got the crash bulkhead just there behind that tripod. So if you take a line, basically straight line from that there and come all the way back, you're quite high up in the cofferdam. The original pipe was way down here. So we're going to basically do a straight line, weld it at the bulkhead at the front, so it'll be roughly the same place as where that hole was, and come all the way through, and we'll be roughly straight. So it'll be probably half a metre higher in the cofferdam. The beauty of doing it that way is it means that I've actually got space to weld it. So I'll show you up in the cofferdam here. That hole there is the original flange that it comes out at. If you come up the floor, so that's the floorboards just there, that level there, and the new hole's going to be up here somewhere. And the beauty is that it's incredibly easy and fast to access if ever we need to know if we've reached the hull. My earth clamp died.
Oh no!
Adam, if
Drama.
you're watching, yeah, another one, mate. Maybe not.
What's going on? Oh, okay. Time for a change.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, they don't work when you do them like that. I'm running out of consumables. I'm going through them at 1,000,000 miles an hour. There's so much rust and crap that has to cut through.
Yeah, right.
And my gun got zorked the other day, so my gun really doesn't help. I don't know much about plasmaring, so like there's probably guys out there that can tell me, but right? So these are the middle, like, consumable part. And see how there's like all these burnt marks all the way around the side? Stay still. There's all these burnt marks all the way around the middle. I think that's when you get really cracked connection, electrical connection, and then also the tip is basically burnt off. That there is what it should look like.
Right.
And that there is what it does look like. You can see it's completely burnt off. Right. Actually, if I show you against that. There we go. Good versus old.
Yeah, put the faces up there. Right.
And you can also see around the sides, good versus old here. See, one's got all sorts of arcing and carrying on.
So is it quality of stuff, or is it something you're specifically doing?
Probably quality of operator and quality of machine. Some sort of ratio between the two.
Right.
So we're back in the tanks again. We need to put in the pipe that goes between the crash bulkhead up the front here and the cofferdam just behind the ladder there. So this stainless pipe, so this is, I sandblasted this all up yesterday, and I'm going to cut off the daggy bit of paint at the end of that threaded pipe, and I'm going to weld those together, and then that's going to become, that's going to stick through the wall and go into the cofferdam. This is, to give you an idea, that's the same pipe, that's what it was looking like yesterday, so just I think it's probably 304 stainless, just given that the amount of rust and stuff on it, and that's what it comes up like when we give it a quick sandblast with our wet blaster. So what we're doing up in the tank here, so this hole here is where the original pipe used to go through the wall. I've gas cut it off, that's why it's a bit rough around the edge, and there was also another filler, sorry, not a filler, a drain point from this here that did a curve down with mild steel, so that had to go as well. So both of those are getting welded up today. The original pipe used to go through these sort of holes in these bulkheads you can see here, and it went all the way forward, and then that's where it used to go through into the crash bulkhead up front. But all of that's going to be sealed up today. I'm going to grind that flush and weld a plate over top of that. What we're going to do is, it just simply because of room, it's just too hard to try and get it in the bottom there and weld it in. They did that when they built the boat, so like, you know, when there's no sides on the boat, it's really a piece of cake to get in there and weld that all the way around. But now that we've got sides on it, we've got a divider in the centre here, like, it's actually a bit of a pain, so we're not going to try and attempt to reuse that. We're actually going to put it up a bit higher, so I've got room to get my MIG welder all the way around, and then we're going to bring it down all the way here. The downside of doing what I'm about to do with the, like, lifting the pipe up is, actually, if I come out the outside of the boat, I'll show you. So the crash bulkhead is from about here forward, and there's about, from there down is cement, and that pipe sort of sits right at the just above the cement. So if you get water in it, pretty much straight away that pipe's going to get water in and fill it up and go back down into the cofferdam. Because I'm lifting it up, there's going to be a little bit more water can get into that before I know that there's a breach in the hull. And saying that, you're probably talking maybe 50 litres or something like that. Like, it's not a massive amount, and if it's gonna leak, this whole part of the boat is underwater, so if it's going to leak, it's going to have enough pressure to push it down the pipe anyway. So there's a slight delayed reaction, essentially, is the only negative consequence I can see of doing this, but it makes actual building of the pipe a hell of a lot easier. So that's my compromise. That's what I'm going to work on this morning. Sometimes after all your mucking around, you find that your sandblaster's just decided to die. Yeah, so we're going to flapper it clean. If you haven't used these little things before, they're pot rivet drills, and this one's 3mm, or bugger if I know in inches, but they're friggin' awesome as centre drills. They're just little stubby wee things. You can see that they got, see if we can show you, oh, it's not going to do it. They're friggin' awesome. They're just basically a small drill bit at each end, but because they're so short and stubby, they're really strong and they just don't break off like normal drills. So if you ever, needing to throw a centre hole in, these are just amazing. Righto, so this is the pipe that's going to be going through my fuel tank, so I have to make sure that it's completely airtight and there's no leaks anywhere. So I don't have any like pressure testing equipment or anything like that, so I set up a pretty basic pressure test. What I've got at the end, I've got my compressor. Oh, there you go, you can see it starting. I've got my compressor hooked up to the end of this pipe with basically a pipe going straight into the stainless tube. I've jammed rags all the way around it, so it's like mostly sealed up. So inside this pipe is probably about 90 psi, something like that, like pretty high pressure. And I've got to check that this weld here is really good. So all I use is just a bit of soapy dishwashing liquid. Just make sure you give it a good froth up. And if this has got holes, it'll bubble up really bad. There you go. See, it's pissing out, so it's leaking like a sieve. So what I have to do now is just keep going around and basically keep welding this until I can do that test and have no air coming out. If you really want to get, one of the tricks that they sometimes use on trawler tanks and stuff when they can't pressure test them to like real high PSI or anything, is they use diesel. They like just squirt diesel along the weld and then come back a couple hours later and see if it sort of seeped through. Diesel's an amazing penetrant, so like some of the WD-40 and CRCs and things like that, they use kerosene, which is very, very close to diesel. So yeah, like diesel's a great way of checking if you've got any holes in a tank that you can't really pressure test that high. Alright, round two. So it's still a wee bit warm from welding it, but like not so hot that I can't touch it. Yeah, cool. Can't see any leaks happening there. I'm going to go get some new water because that should be leaking, so I could be missing something. Alright, so round two. I've got my spray bottle full of soapy water. Keep that shaken up so you can sort of see it's like full on bubbles. Right, so this is clearly going to leak. So you can see that's what it does when you leak. And this is my mongrel sized weld. Get rid of some of those bubbles. So there's no bubbles whatsoever happening off this, which is perfect. What I want. Clear it all away. So if there was a problem with this weld, it's not the prettiest of weld, that's for sure, but if there was a problem with this weld, it would be doing that. Yeah, so I'm confident enough to throw this in my tank and know that I'm not going to be leaking diesel into any of the other bulkheads. Cool, I'm happy with that. Alright, so we've got our stainless pipe all cut and yeah, sort of sized up and everything. We've got the holes through the bulkhead at each end. So welder's all set up, ready to go. I've got my stainless 309 wire in there, so we're going to weld this end first. So we'll do a bead all the way around on the fuel tank side, and then I'll go into the other side and run a bead all the way around the cofferdam side. It just makes sure that we can get a double continuous weld all the way around basically gives us the best chance of making sure it's not going to leak. And yeah, I should be able to get a pretty decent solid bead on it. So we're welding 6mm steel, so I can put it up quite high and get a nice penetration weld. So we've welded all the way around one side, so you can sort of see the weld. It's a bit sort of agricultural because we have to do a lot of stop-start because this pipe's quite thin compared to the wall. So in the cofferdam, this is where the pipe comes through. If you go end on, you can kind of see like all the way around. It's sealed up, but there's sort of like a nice V or like a dimple that I can now fill up with weld. So when I do a big solid weld, like there's no hole for the weld puddle to fall through, so I can pretty much run one continuous weld all the way around, and by doing that you end up with a brilliant seal, which very rarely leaks. Yeah, so this is after it's been welded, so there's a few stop-starts, so it's a bit of blackness and stuff, but yeah, that'll wheel up alright. So you can kind of see, like, with that whole continuous weld all the way around pretty much, or almost continuous weld all the way around, you end up with a really beautiful seal the whole way around. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with that. About to start plasma cutting some holes. Got some old steel, we're going to blast out a few holes. These are going into the tank. Right down the bottom, we're going to grind and cover that up with steel. So we started getting our pressure tested pipe welded in. We've got one end welded all the way around. We've also got you can see our weld that we put on that we pressure tested, so that's all there out in the open in case we ever need to do anything with it. But I had this absolute friggin' balls up. So at this end, it's the hardest end to weld. I've got it welded about 99% of the way around, and then right at the bottom, up in here, let me see if I can show you. You see those horrific looking welds. That's me at 5 o'clock at night, tired, trying to weld in the hardest place possible, and I've blown a hole in the stainless. So I'm welding 3mm stainless to 6mm mild steel, and I put too much heat in the stainless and not enough heat in the steel, and basically just blew a hole. I'm so pissed off with myself that I've done this because it's so friggin' hard to correct that compared to what it would have been had I just done it right. So I've got to spend, I lose a heap of time when I do this. I've got to spend a bit of time now actually fixing it. So I'm hoping like hell that I get a decent seal on this. God, it's so frustrating, this bloody stainless hole. Like, so I was thinking about, okay, how can I solve this? And I have a couple of options. One, I'm going to try and fix it from this side. If I can do that, it's the easiest way to fix it. So I'm going to grind out all my crap weld and then basically fill the hole with weld. It's not ideal, but that's one way of solving it. And then I'll pressure test it to make sure that it's actually going to hold the, you know, it's not going to leak or anything like that. If that doesn't work, and I don't want to do this, but if that doesn't work, my next option is, in a previous video, we cut into our crash bulkhead. So check out the video tag above me. That shows you all of the stuff that we had to do to get into the crash bulkhead. So if I can't fix this hole from this side, what I'm thinking is I'll reopen up my weld. I'll basically slice down the centre of my weld and take the access port out, climb down inside that crash bulkhead, and then run a bead of weld all the way around the pipe from the other side. Yeah, it still won't necessarily fix the hole in the pipe. I'll have to fix that from this side, but it will mean I'll get a good bead around like a double continuous weld around the actual bulkhead. So either way, I'm going to make sure this absolutely holds pressure because it's a really critical system. But I'm still not 100% sure how it's all going to be solved yet. Just got a few ideas floating around as to how to do it.
Hey, I heard you want to leave this place where we grew up. This old town, just put it all behind. Remember you and I would always find somewhere to hide when we were kids, so we could see and hear the water run. The river's gonna cry when you're gone. Where will you go? And won't you miss the ones you know? I'll be here, hanging on, waiting for your call. Seems like time